Love you, dear Ryan. Okay, we are going to do these crusts now. Hopefully they act the same way as a regular dough, so I can do it without screwing it up. We will. How's he doing? This is really not super cold, but yet it feels like it's still pretty hard. So I don't know. Not used to this dough, so I guess let's see. The recipe said that you leave it overnight, but I really feel like I probably would have wanted to deal with this yesterday before it got this solid. Try and give that a bit extra forming. You want to make sure you've got enough flour underneath if you're going to be doing any pressure down like this on it, though, because you'll definitely start to stick. But I kind of knew I was going to have to do it, so I put a little bit of extra flour down to begin with. Just trying to get this back sticking. You know, get that butter to cool off, or I should say warm up just enough to grab hold of dough. We'll see. Maybe it's still too cool. Well, it's supposed to be cold, and it's still only cool. But I think we'll get it rolled out and then maybe press it back together like I was just doing, even when it's thin. Probably just takes a little more work. But this recipe here is actually from a lady, I'll put the links down below, from a lady online, and she said she got it out of an old French cookbook that she was looking through the recipes, and she's got family members that are, obviously we all do, that have gluten intolerances, and she was looking for recipes, and she noticed that oddly for a pie shell recipe, it has the use of an egg, which, as you know, when you take the gluten out, you're using gluten flour, that's the actual binder that holds the dough together. So if you don't have that, you typically find egg as a replacement. And since that recipe already had egg in it, she thought it would be a possible, ooh, I gotta get my slide, it's starting to stick a little bit, so it would be a good possible recipe for gluten-free. So she tried it, that she really liked it. So it's not even a super finicky dough. That her eight-year-old granddaughter helped her with the entire recipe and did most of the mixing, and it came out wonderful. And any of you that are bakers know that some doughs are not that forgiving. You have to give the grandkids a different task because you mess with dough too much and it will react poorly for you. Now, she obviously said you don't want to overmix it and stuff, but she said it wasn't a super finicky dough. Which again, if you do much stuff with dough, you know kind of the difference. Just because it's not finicky doesn't mean that you're not going to have some problems. You don't want to overwork it, but if someone tells you it's a finicky dough, then you know you really got to be careful what you're doing because you can really mess up the quality of it. You know, it just ends up not being flaky. You end up with a kind of a pasty crust, which I'm sure all of us have had once or twice. But one other trick that she said was real important, I mean I knew, but she pointed out was real important, and I'm sure it's even more so when you're talking about getting the flaky nature out of a crust that's got an alternative to gluten. You're already kind of struggling to get that typical flakiness. Well, keeping your butter in small little chunks when you do it by fingers or in slivers when you're throwing it in your food processor with the paddles is the way you want to do it. You want nice cold butter so that you get little spots. I can see butter all through this. You can't see with the light, but you can see little spots of butter. And that makes me hopeful because at least then I know, we've got the beginning of that flakiness, because that's what you get. Now this isn't rolling up quite as far as I want it to. It's starting to split real heavy. I'm going to put a little more flour on it. I'm not sure how much further I'm going to get, or if I'm just going to have to kind of compromise and shape it appropriately. Maybe do some finger adding once I get it in there, because it's just splitting a lot. So maybe I'll just get it in there, and then whatever broken pieces off I can add to the edges for the continuation of the crust. A little more stretch on it. Here we go. Fairly good that time from the middle. Because I hope I'm not doing this uneven just because I'm paying attention to these cracks and stuff. Because kind of, you know how it goes. You pay attention to one thing so you don't do it wrong and you end up messing something else up. Alright, as you can see, it's got a number of cracks in here, but I'm just going to gently get those back together for now. Make sure it slides still. And then once I get it in my pie dish, then I will get my fingers wet. You know what, I think I might do that right now. Just a little bit of water on here. I don't have an egg wash going, which I probably should. You know what, I think I'm gonna go get an egg wash. And when I say egg wash, nothing special, just single egg, crack it up, get it mixed up in your bowl, and you brush it off. Because the protein in the egg will help bind stuff together, keep it bound together. And again, because you're going with a gluten-free, you don't have the other binders, I would have used just water to touch them back together, but by doing that, you would activate the gluten and help the dough stick together, but you would not be getting looking for my pastry brush. You wouldn't be getting the holding power that you will with the egg. Okay, looking for my pastry brush. I know I brought my pastry brush. Oh, there it is. Very important. Okay, put a little bit of this on there, get that moistened up. Again, you want to make sure you're not sticking down to the table. That will moisten the dough a little bit right there, allowing you to kind of bind it together a little bit. Now, it's not like glue, it's not going to hold it there for you, but it just gets it back together, so as long as you don't rip it apart again, it should cook like that instead of being the big gap. But I can see some of them are being a problem because they already want to shrink back. But we'll see how it goes. First time, like I said, first time I've worked with this recipe. First time I've worked with gluten-free, actually. Last night was the first night I did any gluten-free stuff. I did cookies and some macaroons, and which you wouldn't think you had to worry about gluten-free, but they have flour in them, so you have to make sure. But I made a collection of different goodies because she doesn't normally get them, so I figured that's what I do, is I kind of bake for the holidays, so I figured I wanted to take the extra time and do something special for her since she doesn't get them normally. When I even tried to have my son find out what she liked for baked treats and stuff, she didn't have any answers because she doesn't get a chance to try them, so she's been gluten-free for so long, so I figured I would learn how to do that this time and try some of those recipes. Now, I did have a fail earlier. I'm not going to tell you which particular recipe, but it didn't come out like it was supposed to. But I think it was me. All right. this dough is not real flexible, so I'm not sure if this trick's gonna work with this one. Oof. Flaky acting. I'm supposed to roll it up over this pin, and then you can roll it down into it over your dish, your pie plate. This one is acting like it doesn't want to do it. And it could be just a feature of the gluten-free nature of the dough. Not sure. It's getting rough, but I got it on there. But I got pieces here. So therefore, it's like little sheets that are left here as they're breaking off. So it will allow me to fix it. See how it goes back together once it cooks. I'm supposed to put an egg wash on the bottom of this anyways. It'll help it seal. So I'm going to take advantage of that and use that as my binder for all these pieces that I'm putting back in. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit thicker crust. You know, who doesn't like some extra crust? As long as it's a good crust, right? All right, this stuff does not bend and fold like typical crust would, so therefore I need to remember that. Just kind of place it there and bind it up. So it's not gonna be able to kind of put the decorative flair to the dough, I don't think, that you typically do, because it just doesn't bend the same way. But we'll see. We'll see what I can do. Now, a lot of times, like you do with water, you can do this with the egg. It's kind of like you do on with concrete. You know, you have an area you want to smooth out, you just keep going over it with the flow, and the water will come to the surface and it'll help it smooth. But once you put this egg wash on there, you know, you don't need to drown it. You put that on there and you just keep going, and the dough itself reacts with it, and eventually it smooths right out. And you've got a sealed surface. Kind of like spackling those holes in the wall right before we move out of that apartment. Could someone let Brewski out the door? I think he wants to go outside. Or is he whining at you? Okay, I thought he was by the door. I don't want to. He's in here with me. Here he comes. Blue was in here behind me, hanging out. Alright, once it's sealed up, get this egg wash on the whole bottom here. brewski out there trying to run in the 2.5 feet of deep snow.
Hello. Yeah.
I'm a little heavy on the egg wash on the bottom. I'm just going to pull a little bit out. So you keep a good coat on. Take a paper towel, you just pull a little bit out. It grabs right hold of that paper towel pretty good. So, alright, get that bottom one. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'm concerned about that top one doing the right stuff. Thinning out enough and all that. But we'll see how it goes. See if I can salvage this dough like I can the others and make little tarts afterwards. So I will put that back in the fridge. Okay, I let this one stay cooling in there. Maybe a bit stiffer, but I'm hoping that maybe it rolls out a little better by keeping it a little cooler there. Using the warmth of my hand to get it pliable. I want to be careful though because you can see the marbling of the butter. Actually did a pretty good job of that. I don't want to break that down too much. So I'm just trying to warm it up enough that it doesn't crack and all that when I start to push it. But I don't want to overdo it and break down all that butter and get it too soft and start to mush in because that's not what you want. So I'm just going to use the warmth of my hand to kind of flatten this out to the beginning stage. See if that helps it stay together. Okay, yeah, it's starting to act like it's getting too much contact with my hand, so there's some flour on there and starting with this will, by doing it like this, I put the flour on to help slow down the heat a little bit. But by using my hands right now, I'm able to get that to stretch a little bit better without it cracking. I should have thought of that on the first one, but learning process. I wish I had my flat edge blade to pick stuff up, but I forgot it at home. Because I am not at my house. I'm actually at my son's mom's house, preparing the Christmas dinner and other things that go with. Trying to get it to a consistent thickness. So it makes it a little tough when you're squishing the edges like that, adding all the products, because when you thin it out properly with a roll, you don't have a whole lot of extra to do that with. So as I'm rolling, I'm leaving those outer edges just a little bit fat right now, have the extra material to then get in there and push it down and have it go towards each other like I want them to. So it's definitely a little more work, but it also helped with using my hands a little more at the beginning of this one, I think. Okay, again, I gotta move. Bruce, can you get out of the kitchen? Come on. Alright, we'll get this filling. Now, one other tip, when you're doing a fruit pie, a lot of times when you do pie, you poke holes in the bottom. You do not want to do that with these fruit pies, because what you'll do is you'll let all the moisture out into the bottom and it will just get soggy. You actually need it to brown up a little bit. That's why you start the oven at 425, because that's going to give it a chance to brown up and harden up so it doesn't leak all through. Now, I did this fruit last night, these apples. I'm not liking the amount of liquid I'm seeing here. I think too much drained out. I didn't expect that much to come out because it was in the refrigerator. So I thought they would stay tighter. But it didn't, so I'm a little concerned about it tightening up like it's supposed to. Big enough that you can pass the edges, and that's good. Well, it wasn't super important what it looked like as far as rebinding the bottom part, because it was going to be covered with this top layer, and then we'll bind that together. Again, using the egg wash. What are you whining about, buddy? Are you whining because no one's paying attention to you? Brewski? Are you a little attention getter and you need the attention, or are you going to whine? Get away from the table, please. To lick the flour that fell off my hands on the floor. top here, and we'll give it a little bit of golden crust. Vent for the steam to melt. And put that in the oven. At 425, 10 minutes, excuse me, 20 minutes. And then we'll turn the temperature down. Bruce, get out of the kitchen. Bruce, get out of the kitchen. Says place it on a parchment-lined baking sheet. Not really sure why you do that, but I'm not going to argue what they're saying. I'm going to do it the way the recipe says. Alright, putting together the sweet potato casserole. Already got everything else mixed in. My butter, my brown sugar, my vanilla. Getting the marshmallows on now. Typically use the miniature marshmallows, but these were a better price and just a little more marshmallow. I'm just going to leave a little bit of space in between them and then maybe go back and rip some of them to throw in the space, because where the miniatures would have been completely covered. I'll do that with these, but I'll fill the gaps with pieces. There's zero reason to spend more money on the miniatures when you can easily just tear these apart if you need to. I suppose it looks nice with the little tiny bumpies, but I don't know. I think it looks nice like this. There we go. Now this was going to 375 for 25 minutes. And I'm going to do that at the tail end so that comes out fresh. Just like we did, I got the green bean casserole over here. Got that waiting too, staging, ready to go. Let me show you a little trick I do for my turkey. I don't remember where I saw this. Go know where I saw this. I'm sure I saw it somewhere and I didn't make it up myself, but you know how that goes sometimes. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean up these potatoes just a little bit. Now I use these red potatoes because red potatoes are a better form of carb. The white potatoes are much faster firing carbs, so you get a better, longer energy out of the red potatoes, so it's a better, healthier choice all the time. Now what I do here for the bottom of my pan is I want to create, instead of using a rack, like some people put it on a rack, I'm going to take like thickness potatoes and I'm going to put them down inside my pan like that. Now what that does is that is going to keep the turkey up off the bottom, so you don't get quite all that slimy bottom that you think of sometimes when you bring a turkey out. What's going to happen is these potatoes are going to suck up a lot of that fat too. Yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of the gravy because it sucks up in there, the little broth, but it keeps it off the bottom, keeps it from being slimy, makes the meat a little nicer. And those potatoes are really yummy to add to the other potatoes in the mashed potatoes because they've been cooked underneath the bird. Sitting up on a little bed of potatoes. Now I gotta get stuffing. Prepare the stuffing. So I put just a little bit of stuffing inside, a little bit around it. But let me get to that, and then I'll turn you back on when we get to something. As with all the time when you're cooking, you always seem to run into times when things are all happening at the same time. I need to get a bit of things done here. Actually, let me take you over. I want to give you a quick look at the pie came out. It actually looks really good. Let me spin this thing around so I can see. That is my gluten-free apple pie, and I made a little fritter to go with it. We'll see how it tastes. Looks really nice, but I gotta get going because I got my stuff for my stuffing here. Got my potatoes boiling. Got everything happening. Got these things prepping. Got this just about to receive the little bit of stuffing and then put in the oven. All right, well this is Dean P, and I'd like to thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And if you would hit that subscribe button, toss me a like, and throw a comment. YouTube likes to see that. And I'm just revving up now. I'm putting together all my new gear, and I'm going to be doing a lot more interviews with some interesting people, going to some events, and you might even see my beautiful pit bull in there a little bit. But hey, I'd like to thank you all again for hanging around to the end of this one. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our president. Stay patriotic.